Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head the deck. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me your boom.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, Del?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic.
And we putting it on wax.
We are Jalen and Jacoby. What do we do?
We get a fine individual that has supported this program 6 years. Podcast, radio, television at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Exactly what they want, when they want it. More importantly, when they need it.
I have a special thing to say for our podcast listeners is I saw a dude out and he recognized me. Shout to Colin. And he was like, I listen to you guys every day. And I was thinking about that. I was like, man, this dude knows as much about my life than most people. You know what I mean? And the people that listen every day, the people that make it part of their daily routine are the motivating people behind this. We love that relationship that you have with us, and let us know when we're slipping. Tweet at us with questions. Make sure you call us in with voicemails. We're all about engaging with you because at the end of the day, we Jalen Rose, it's that time again, and I am very concerned. It's time for the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
And now, the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
Michael Bennett of the Seahawks released an open letter detailing an incident that occurred after the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight in which he heard gunshots, ran with a group of people that were all dispersing. He was then apprehended by police, and according to him, a weapon was drawn on him, his life was threatened, he was handcuffed, and excessive force was used against him. Here's a section of the open letter that I will read to you. The officer's excessive use of force was unbearable. I felt helpless as I lay there on the ground, handcuffed, facing the real-life threat of being killed. All I could think of was, I'm going to die for no other reason than I am black, and my skin color is somehow a threat. Jalen Rose, what is your first reaction after hearing about this incident?
Wow. Not surprised, unfortunately. And the unique thing about this taking place was that it started with Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. Megan Rapinoe in soccer also followed suit, multiple NFL players, and it spilled over into this season where people still chose the opportunity during the national anthem to do what I call a passive protest. Mm-hmm. Michael Bennett was one of those athletes that chose to sit based on some of the things that he felt uncomfortable with that are taking place as it relates to injustices in our country while the anthem was playing. So he's in Las Vegas. He's attending the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight. As you mentioned, he hears gunshots, and like multiple people, he's running. Now, also with being black, he's a defensive end. So he's big, he's strong, and to many, he may seem intimidating. Oh, and by the way, he's rich and famous, too, for whatever it's worth. When you hear stories like this, it harkens me back to when people talk about Black Lives Matter, some people get offended by that term. It doesn't mean that all lives don't matter, because of course they do. You shouldn't have to say that. The reason why that term became so profound is because of the specificity that comes with it. It almost meant Black Lives Matter too. And so when I hear about the instance in Cobb County where the cop pulls over the lady and they're in the front seat negotiating, and he says to her, well, you don't have to worry about it. You're not black. We only kill black people. And so when these things get said, and then now you see the video, now you hear the audio, for some, it's alarming. For people that understand that this behavior has been going on for so very long, it's not surprising. And so I appreciate the fact that this was caught on video. And now I think for those who were offended by not only his protest or by anybody else's right to, again, do a passive protest for something that our United States legislates because we're considered the land of the free and home of the brave, is something that you should now be able to respect somebody's position. And as I also see the video, it makes me think, wow, here's a guy that took a seat during the anthem and probably got some negative PR. But when he takes a knee to the back and get a gun put to the back of his head and somebody threatens his life, maybe people will start to listen.
It is sort of poetic and it's crazy and ironic and coincidental that it was one of the athletes that was standing up against this exact behavior that became a victim of this exact behavior. It's troubling as a society that this type of thing has to happen because this type of thing happens all the time to people who are not famous football players. Like the amount of instances in which there is excessive force used by police happens. There was a study by Bowling Green that says it's about 1,000 incidents a year. That's over 3 a day. But now because it is Michael Bennett, not only will his stance during the national anthem try to bring some awareness to it, unfortunately, him being victimized by this exact thing that he was protesting will bring even more awareness to it. And hopefully it will bring to justice the officers that, from what it looks like on the video, used excessive force. From one don't get fired topic, we now transition to another.
And now, the don't get fired topic of the day.
Jalen Rose, you are soon to be enshrined in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. You've got your own high school. You've got a legacy that is felt and appreciated beyond your performance on the basketball court, your performance in the community. And you were again enshrined for your performance amongst the community. This time, it is a picture on the wall that was sent to us by Hooters in Toronto. Okay? Is this you being flanked by a couple of employees of a Hooters in Toronto?
Oh, that's not me. That don't look like me.
That's not you with the big oversized quadruple X camo jacket on? That's not you at all?
Wasn't me.
Well, let's zoom out a little bit. Who's that? Who's your companion there? Is that a teammate of yours? Is that a friend of yours?
I don't know who that is.
You don't know any? I don't know who that is either. It looks really familiar, both those human beings. But one thing I know is those two upstanding young members of this community would never do something like have a picture enshrined on the wall of a Hooters, right?
We wouldn't do something like that. That's a lot of cleavage in that picture.
We would never do something like that.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
So Jalen Rose, the quote-unquote independent arbitrator in the Ezekiel Elliott case, you'll never believe this, upheld the suspension that his employer, the NFL, laid down, right? Doesn't seem like the most just way of doing this. However, they did say because of the timing of the situation, they're allowing Ezekiel Elliott to play week 1 in their huge matchup against the Giants. Do you think this was motivated by a fair and just decision? Or do you think this was motivated by, I don't know, TV ratings and wanting to make sure that the NFL kicked week 1 off with a huge marquee matchup? I don't know. Maybe it's just me reading into stuff too much.
Are you ready for some football?
No.
Here's what this basically breaks down. We're not talking about innocence or guilt to Ezekiel Elliott's situation anymore to acknowledge whether domestic violence actually took place.
No, it's the process through which the investigation was carried out is what's being discussed now.
And so for all sides to truly find justice, I think number one, that should be addressed, and that should be at the forefront. Obviously, there are some credibility issues with the accuser, which when that happens, obviously it has to be considered. Now to the NFL, there's a big Sunday Night Football game on primetime TV, and NBC is our partner.
Mm-hmm.
And
They
the
paid us
Dallas
billions of
Cowboys
dollars.
Are considered America's team.
And it might be the world's team right now.
And so we botched again closing how we're going to issue discipline to a player. And again, if Kia Roberts was the person that interviewed the alleged victim, Roger Goodell,
talk to her.
Just talk to her
Get on the phone.
or have her in the room.
Send a text.
And by the way, the decision is still yours. So for you not to do that, that was a grave error. And so for the NFLPA, whose job is to solely protect the player's best interest, we find ourselves over the last few years entering a season where those two sides are in legal situations as it relates to court battles based on decisions that were made by the commissioner that didn't find its way to close a scenario. And that's unfortunate when you're in that position of power. What I would ask you, if and when there will be some level of discipline and or reprimand by the owners to Roger Goodell based on how he's handled these situations.
I do not think so. I think this will play out just like Deflategate played out. Court cases, higher courts, more appeals, more upholding the suspended sentence. It's going to keep going on and on like that until it sort of fizzles out and some sort of compromise is met where he gets a 4-game suspension instead of a 6-game suspension. It'll be like next season. And it'll end up happening the same thing that happened last time. Great job, Roger. Pat in the back. Let's give you an extension and pay you more millions of dollars a year.
And so what we can't allow to happen, however, is this. Ezekiel Elliott, for public consumption, had some questionable behavior over the past 12 months.
Yes, to say the very least.
And what was discovered in his court proceedings about his alleged drug use in college, even Urban Meyer came out, his college coach, and talked about how he was really concerned about his decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a player that got suspended for his conduct that was detrimental not only to himself, clearly, because he's living his life, but also to the league, this now can't become only about the process where he doesn't get reprimanded, disciplined, or punished, or more importantly, learned from this past behavior over the past 12 or so months. And so that can't get lost in these court proceedings with the NFLPA doing their job trying to protect their players' best interest.
And I think one thing that's important is for everyone that's a fan of this sport, that's interested in this particular topic and wants to educate themselves, is go to Deadspin. They put up a great post where they have excerpts from all the interviews and they just deliver you the raw evidence. And I'm not here to be judge and jury, but I just want to point our listeners and point sports fans to educate themselves about what facts are out there. Who said what about what happened on the various different nights and questions, what is being said in these courtrooms, because I think that a lot of times is you'll just get the surface level analysis and you'll get the headline, you'll get the facts, and you'll get the suspension was upheld. But I think it is important to dig down into the details, which are what exactly occurred between these human beings. I think it is safe to say that there are only a handful of people on this planet that definitively know what happened between these two human beings, and it's not our job to speak into microphones and try to tell you what we think happened. But it is, I feel, my duty that if you care, to tell you that if you go to Deadspin, there's a great post that pulls out all of the different perspectives of the parties involved during this week-long saga that occurred in Columbus, Ohio with Ezekiel Elliott. But I'm going to pivot into football a little bit, if you don't mind me, don't stop talking about court cases, because there's some interesting stats about Ezekiel Elliott and his performance against these New York Giants. Perhaps you own him in a fantasy league and you're curious. Ezekiel Elliott had one of the most phenomenal rookie seasons for a running back that have occurred in the history of the NFL, right? However, he wasn't great against the Giants. Last season, when he faced them in Week 1, he only had 51 yards rushing. Brand new rookie, first game, I can understand that. However, in the middle of his tear, in Week 13, in the second half, he had 9 carries and only 21 yards. Last year, the Giants finished number 1 in the league, only allowing 25 touchdowns. The Giants also had the number 1 red zone defense. They were number 2 in points per game defensively. While a lot of people see Dak and Zeke, Dez, Jason Witten, Beasley, all the weapons that the Cowboys have on offense, could they be outclassed by this underrated Giants defense?
For your water cooler conversation, I'm going to give you guys a comparison that I want you to own as your own. Please don't credit me.
Yeah, we want to give you stats. Take them.
Landon Collins of the New York Giants. And those that know me clearly know, other than the Wolverines, I follow the U.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out. He clearly reminds me of one of my favorite safeties that attended that university. Sean Taylor. Who was tragically killed when his house was burglarized years ago. That's who he reminds me of. He intercepts, he gets sacks, he plays the run, he plays the pass. He's a physical hitter. He's the leader of that defense. He will be an all-pro defender. And I agree with you. With big snacks on the defensive line, I do think their defense does get overlooked when you talk about the dynamic of weapons that the Dallas Cowboys bring to the table.
I would take a hard look at this line if I was into gambling. I'm not, so I won't. But if you're listening and you're gambling, I would take a hard look at this line, and I would definitely take a hard look at taking the under. Yep. Jalen Rose. Bryce Harper has a new hairdo. He went and got braids. He's got cornrows, which, of course, leads to the obvious question for anyone that watches or listens to this show. Are cornrows cultural?
They are not.
I totally co-sign these cornrows.
There will be people that accuse him of being a culture vulture.
Appropriation and blah, blah, blah. Yep.
But I would have to say no.
No, it looks good.
And they're not something that's only for one gender.
No, not gender, not race specific. If you've got hair long enough to braid it up. I think it looks good on Bryce. And one thing I like about Bryce is, unlike me and you, he changes his hairstyle all the time. It was just a matter of time before he had cornrows. It's just going to be a matter of time before he has a ponytail. It's going to be a matter of time before he's got some stuff shaved in the sides. Like, he tries everything. He really tries everything. He's like me with cereals. Doesn't like to stick with one thing for too long.
Not race specific, not gender specific.
Good. Isaiah Thomas had a very thoughtful and emotional write-up from his feelings of what he's going through right now as he leaves Boston and joins Cleveland on the Cavaliers. And there's a section that really was extra sensitive and felt like a poem. So here's a dramatic reading from a section of Isaiah Thomas's Players Tribune post. It hurt a lot. And I won't lie, it still hurts. It's not that I don't understand it. Of course I get it. This is a business. Danny is a businessman, and he made a business move. I don't agree with it. Just personally. And I don't think the Boston Celtics got better by making this trade. But that's not my job. That's Danny's. That was a dramatic reading of Isaiah Thomas's post from the Players Tribune. Jalen Rose. He was in his feelings, but he did kind of throw a shot at Danny Ainge. He said the Celtics did not get better by making this trade. Do you think the Celtics got better by making this trade?
I think both teams got better.
It was a great trade.
And since we're talking about the Celtics part of it, it wasn't just about acquiring Kyrie Irving. It was about acquiring Gordon Hayward also. Yeah. They now have their backcourt of the future, 2 guys that play at an all-star level. They only returned 4 players to a roster that was a number 1 seed and only 1 starter in Al Horford. People are not talking a lot about them adding Marcus Morris, who's going to help them up front.
Of course.
This trade also opens up room for the young players to get more minutes. Jaylen Brown and Tatum, Rozier, Marcus Smart. So, of course, when you're the guy that got traded from a squad that was the number 1 seed and you averaged 29 points, you feel like they're going to take a step back. But I think the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics got better with this deal.
I was surprised reading this, and I don't usually read things, I just read like the headline. When I read this, I was surprised that he did seem a little salty. Like, it did seem like there was a part of him that still wanted to be in Boston, that felt like he had been wronged somewhat. Like, there's no reason to point out that he think that the Celtics did not get better through this trade. It kind of feels like he fully expected them to back up the Brinks truck and him to spend his entire career in the Celtics green and white, and was a bit blindsided. Do you think that he's just in feeling that way?
I think he's just in feeling that way because this comes from a competitive spirit for a guy that's 5'9", that's always had to overcome challenges, not only with his height, but people not believing that he can accomplish what he's shown that he has the ability to. The thing that stood out to me from the trade, other than the fact that Kyrie Irving decided he didn't want to play in Cleveland with LeBron James anymore, was the fact that the Boston Celtics basically told Isaiah Thomas they didn't want to give him a max contract.
They do not. Well, the Boston Celtics are very excited about their new acquisition, Kyrie Irving. Danny Ainge had something interesting to say about what he expects from Kyrie in Boston.
Well, I think that what we don't see, that I think that we will see, is I think you'll see that he's a better passer. I think that people that watch Kyrie play a lot can see his passing and his potential there as a passer, but LeBron was pretty much the point guard in Cleveland, and Kyrie was a point guard often when LeBron wasn't on the court. So
Jalen Rose, do you think Kyrie will be a better passer now that he is with the Celtics?
He'll have the basketball in his hands more, and Danny alluded to something that's true. Kyrie Irving is the first player in the history of the NBA to average 25 points and 5 assists, yet not lead his team in either one of those categories. That's what happens when you play with an icon like a LeBron James. So based on that, yes, I think he's going to have the opportunity for his assist numbers to go up and for he to show that he can hope to make players around him better. But for the Boston Celtics, they really want to be predicated on ball movement. And so they keep the paint open. They use Al Horford a lot at the high post as an initiator of offense, cutter to pass to cutters, as well as to set screen and roll action. So with that, he will have the opportunity to score more without necessarily dominating the ball as much, but he also, in reverse, will have the opportunity to play make and show that that part of his game does exist more than it did in Cleveland.
And in Cleveland, he was never expected to play without the ball. Like you see a lot of teams that use their best players coming off screens and running around and sort of like actions to get them open, not just open jump shots, to get them open with some momentum to get past their man. And it really felt like the Cleveland offense is predicated on LeBron or Kyrie having the ball, dribbling out, and someone coming up, slowly setting a pick for them with like 15 seconds left on the shot clock. It will be fun to watch him in this new system, this Brad Stevens system that he alluded to. But Danny Ainge, one quick hint. I wouldn't really mention the part that you're expecting the Kyrie when LeBron was off the floor, because if you look at the stats, when LeBron was off the floor, the Cavs completely fell apart. Now, a lot of that was because they were built to have LeBron on the floor, but next time when you're hitting this talking point and you're talking to another media outlet, you might not want to point that out, Mr. Ainge. Who am I? I'm just saying, just trying to help you. Just trying to help you, Mr. Ainge. Just trying to help.
LeBron is somewhere picking his fantasy team if you get jammed up, don't mention my name.
What I got to do with this? It's not my fault that I'm the best player on the planet and people give me the ball, and that's how we have our offensive system. It's not my fault that Kyrie couldn't average more assists than me, even though he's the point guard. It's not my fault. If you get me jammed up, don't mention my name. So Jalen Rose, they have moved the Bucks and Dolphins game because of the impending Hurricane Irma, which seems like it's going to be a devastating natural disaster throughout not just Florida, but through the islands surrounding Florida, the entire Caribbean, and everyone in those affected areas and outside of those affected areas. Stay safe. We wish you the best. But moving the game to Week 11, when both teams have a bye, creates 16 straight games without a bye. We've heard a lot over the past few years about the NFL's interest in player safety, but sometimes the actions don't necessarily seem to back up the words. There was a tweet here from Chris Baker who said, clearly no one is thinking about player safety. No one knows how it feels to medicate yourself all week just to play on Sunday. Jalen Rose, what do you think about this move from the NFL because of Hurricane Irma?
It put the NFL in an awkward position. It was a unique opportunity to reschedule the game because both teams had byes the same week.
Just so happened to be.
Which makes that something that when you look down at the schedule, you like, there is a landing spot, worst case scenario, if we can't find a solution earlier.
It's a quick fix, right? It's a quick fix. And, you know, I always like to think about, you're the athlete, and I always like to think from the executive perspective. Like, if I was in the NFL and this was a decision that I had to handle in my office, it's not the most elegant solution because of the things that Mr. Baker points out. However, Chris Long has a very interesting suggestion. Here's his tweet. Should move the game to a neutral site, sell affordable tickets to benefit hurricane recovery. Am I being naive? Now that's interesting. Move to a neutral site. It does give a disadvantage if you were originally supposed to host the game, but there are circumstances in life that make things that way. And I think the disadvantage that you will get from not being able to host that game is lesser than the disadvantage that you get from playing 16 straight games, especially for the remaining 5 games of your season after you have to not have a bye. What do you think about that potential solution? That's probably what I would go with if I was in the corner office working for the NFL.
I agree with you and Chris Long. There have been multiple cases where there were issues with weather. I remember when there was an issue with the Superdome in Minnesota, and they actually played their game in Detroit. And so there is a level of flexibility for multi-billion-dollar conglomerates like the NFL and professional football teams that can actually get on a private plane and play the game anywhere.
Exactly. And the fans would love it. And you know what I always like? I always like when big, huge billion-dollar corporations say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something to benefit humanity, not just our bottom line. Jalen Rose, we both have a passion for basketball, hip-hop, smoothies, and sneakers. There is an image on the internet of what looks to be the LeBron James 15 sneaker. I have very, very high bar when it comes to signature sneakers on athletes, especially basketball players. I have to say, I think I love these. Your thoughts?
I like them.
I really like them.
I would definitely rock those. When LeBron first had his kicks in the league as a young player, I actually wore his shoes.
You did?
And there became a point when they started to do the weird commercials and the shoes started to get really big and bulky.
His shoes, they started as like a sedan and then at one point turned into like a Ford truck. And it was just like, these things, they look like moon boots. They weigh 3 pounds apiece. Like, I understand that LeBron James need this for his stability, but he's a 280-pound dude, and I am not. But this looks light. It looks sleeker, and it kind of looks like it's got that vapor technology on the bottom. I'm a big fan of these sneakers. However, I will not be able to afford them because I'm not paying $200 for a pair of kicks. Sorry, Bron. Send me a free pair. 11.5. Next, another new image was released, this time by the Seahawks. They've got a new logo. This time the Seahawks stares at you, face to beak. What do you think about the new Seahawks logo?
I'm just going to put it on wax right now. Seattle Seahawks are winning the NFC this year.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm glad that you made that statement. Put it on wax. What do you think about the logo?
I am not mad at the logo, except when I look at the one that's on the shoulder, when I look closer in reverse, it almost looks like the hawk is laying between cleavage, not necessarily shoulder.
There are some, it has been pointed out, not just by us, but by others, there are some sort of like hidden sexual Easter eggs in there. They're a little weird. But also I was looking at it and I was like, this does look cool. This hawk looks really intimidating if I was looking straight at it. However, I have one fix. You got to put some shoulders on the hawk. Like the hawk needs a body. Like that was just a floating head. A floating head is not nearly as intimidating as like a diesel hawk coming at you with its wings spread. Just a note. Feel free to take that. Don't charge me. I won't send an invoice or anything. And now we continue the saga of Martin Shkreli and his embargo of the Wu-Tang Clan album that only he can hear. He originally paid $2 million for this, and he has now put it up on eBay. Jalen Rose, a couple things we know about you. Number one, we know you're rich because you played in the NBA for a long time. Number two, we know you like to give the people what they want. Will you just buy this Wu-Tang album and just give it out for free? Please? Please, Jalen?
As much as I love Wu-Tang.
Please, Jalen?
And represent
do it
their
for the
legacy
people. You say you give the people what they want.
So much.
You give the people what they want.
I would not give this guy a dime.
That's a good point. What if the proceeds went to charity? Would you then do it for the people?
I would have no choice but to do it for the people because at this point it's become a mockery.
I know.
Arguably the greatest group next to NWA
the greatest
of
group
all time. To have this guy slowly leaking records and
on the background on a YouTube video of it. It ain't right. This is not what the Wu-Tang Clan had in mind. They had a great idea. They're like, we're just going to make one copy, and we're going to sell that one copy. It's going to be like this secret scroll. And all of a sudden, like, the most evil human being on the face of the planet has it and slowly leaks it out in the background on social media posts. Such a tragedy. Not a tragedy. 50 Cent and Stars have a very interesting relationship. Hot and cold relationship. First of all, some episodes of Power were leaked, and then 50 Cent was like, oh, I did that because I don't like Stars. And then he said that everyone should cancel their Stars subscriptions after the season concluded. Well, on the heels of that very contentious statement by 50 Cent is this statement by 50 Cent. There are now reportedly, according to 50 Cent, 3 new Power-esque 50 Cent shows coming out from Stars. Is this too much power? Is 3 new shows really? Is that really giving the people what they want, Jalen?
Yes, it is. I need something to watch. Power season just ended. It'd be ideal if another program was to start right now. Did you know that Ghost, Tommy, and Kanan have all loped up on the program?
Jalen, spoiler alert.
In one vehicle?
Spoiler alert. Again, you do not understand how spoilers work, do you? Because I get the tweets. When you spoil the shows, I get the tweets. That's what happened. Because you already blocked everybody.
I'm mad at Tasha, though. The lawyer?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Jalen Rose, you're in 2 fantasy leagues. One is the fantasy league for this show, which I'm definitely going to win this year. Shout to our entire staff. Shout to everybody involved. But you're also in another fantasy league, the one you actually care about, because it costs you an extreme amount of hard-earned American currency just for the right to be a part of this league. It is way too expensive. No regular civilian would ever be in a league this expensive. That being said, how'd the draft go?
It's called the Kick A Fantasy Football League. There are some notable individuals that participate in the league that you may know. There are also some people that work closely with them that are truly successful in multimedia entertainment. And so we had our draft, and I'm excited about the way it went.
Jalen Rose, can I cook for a second?
Let's get it.
I pay attention to a lot of different sports. And there's one sport in particular that I don't really follow too closely with the domestic league. I'm not up on all the European leagues and the South American leagues. But when it comes to international competition, I'm a soccer fan. I don't watch the MLS games that much. Maybe the Sounders Timber. I'll watch that rivalry because I enjoy the Pacific Northwest so much. Love that region of the country. Love the passion they bring to the game of soccer. But man, once you put USA across the front of a soccer jersey, I'm watching the game. I watched the game yesterday, a World Cup qualifying match against Honduras. I watched it with the Spanish commentators. Didn't really know what they were saying, but they brought a certain passion to the game, which I appreciated. I watched Friday's match against the Ticos of Costa Rica. And let me tell you what happened on Friday. U.S. looked bad. U.S. looked bad. They lost 2-0. Didn't even really threaten to score that much. And it put them in a perilous situation in World Cup qualifying. At this point in the U.S. soccer team's development, we sort of assume that they'll be in the World Cup. That loss to Costa Rica was pretty rough. From their group, it's pretty clear. I believe it's Argentina and Costa Rica are going to get in. But then there's Honduras there that could keep us from getting an automatic bid. There was a game in Honduras yesterday, Jalen Rose. It didn't start well. Off the heels of a 2-0 defeat, our guys, cheered on by the American Outlaws, got down 1-0 early, didn't really create too many threatening scoring chances, and then Bobby Wood scored a goal. A 1-1 tie might not be the most impressive result in the history of sports, and I understand if you like scoring and you're not into watching soccer, that's fine. You can do what you do on your side of the street, but on my side of the street, we appreciate that. And we are very excited about that tie and the prospects of getting an automatic bid into the World Cup. Please, Costa Rica, play against Honduras in the final qualifying match with the same passion and vigor that you played against America, even if you're already having an automatic bid.
Do you think it's some truth to the United States coach when he comes out and says, based on a lot of things that are happening surrounding the United States of America right now, the other teams are a lot more eager and enthusiastic to give us their best game?
The flat answer to that question is, well, first of all, great question. I love it when you pay attention to what's going on in sports and pop culture. It's intelligent. You're doing my job well. But to answer the question, I will say yes. However, as you always say, is it 1% or 99%? And I'd say that motivation is much closer to 1%. You still got to kick the ball around and score, and tactics and strategy and conditioning and chemistry. All of that is heavier weighted variables in the equation. But listen, even if you can get a little bit of edge, even if it's 2 sentences in the pregame speech from the coach, even if it's just anything to make the other team seem more like the enemy, even if those players don't support those philosophies that they're discussing, that doesn't mean that it cannot help a little bit, especially in a road game. When you look in the crowd and you see those fans and those flags, it can motivate you if you are a team, especially during the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. Great question, Jalen Rose. Good job. Can we finally do the show where you ask the questions the entire time and I just come up with the canned answers? Can we do that?
Absolutely. We can do that tomorrow.
I look forward to that. Not everything is worth discussing in the world of sports and pop culture, so we have this segment called Keep It Moving. If it is worth discussing, we'll hit the brakes. If it is disgusting and not worth discussing, we'll keep it moving. Jalen Rose, Jabari Parker was briefly discussed in a Knicks-Rockets 3-way trade. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
Keep it moving. Carmelo Anthony has a no-trade clause.
He would go to the Rockets in that case, and Jabari would go to the Knicks, and the Knicks would send something. It ain't happening. Let's just keep it moving. A current GM had this to say about the tampering charges levied against the Lakers. Quote, "If you're not cheating by the letter of the law, you're not trying." Another Eastern Conference general manager said, "You don't get free agents without it. Tampering is what the whole league is built on. That's the only way you can get anything done." Keep moving and hit the brakes.
Hit the brakes.
Is there truth to what these anonymous general managers are saying?
First off, I don't like anonymous sources.
There's only 30 of them, so they're not truly anonymous. 15 Eastern Conference.
That's number one. But number two, these relationships foster themselves over years. Being a player, you're fortunate enough to play 3 years, which is the average. You can be a general manager, which has become a hot seat job. More importantly, an owner and or an agent forever. And so, while as a player you feel like a lot of those conversations surround you and your situation and represent only your best interests, a lot of those phone calls, because as I designated of the core players in the game that probably are, say, the top 8 players on rosters, usually they've been represented over the last decade probably by 5 individuals. Yep. And so multiple conversations are being had, not just about one particular player. There are agents that are actually helping teams make chess moves on their roster that involve their players. It happens in entertainment as well. So I understand the premise of it, but also you can't be so flagrant with it.
That's like, you can't be on Kimmel. You can't do it on Kimmel.
Exactly.
Like, come on, Madge. Like, you can brag while you're at dinner with your billionaire friends. You could be on the yacht talking to Uncle Sam Jackson about what you did, this, and that. But you can't be on Kimmel. They got microphones there, man. It's broadcasted on a network television show. Come on, Magic.
That's a partner with AB. That's a partner with the NBA, by the way.
Miles Plumlee may or may not have had a little bit of a medicinal habit and got caught in Long Island. Keep moving and hit the brakes.
Oh, hit the brakes.
Plumlee was arrested in Long Island and charged with possession of marijuana. He was released on $100 bail. Is that too low? Like, just make it zero. Like, come on now, $100?
It sounds like a baseball fine.
Yeah, it's like $100 bail. Like, it's up. Do you have to take a loan out? If you do, are you allowed to go to the ATM? I don't know how it works, but like $100.
That's not too low. It shouldn't be a fine. It should be $10.
That's not even a fine. That's bail. I think he has to go back to see a court case or something. He was traded by the Hornets to the Hawks. Do you think the Hawks are concerned about Plumlee's, personal habits?
I don't think so, especially if he was a card-carrying customer.
I don't believe that that's possible in the state of New York, but I'm not sure. And also, like, do you think he may or may not just get one of those quote-unquote random drug tests? You think one of those randoms?
You automatically go in the program with this.
There's a list. Like, there's got to be a list, right? Do you go in the program even though you didn't test positive?
Oh, of course. You got to automatically be in the program.
Oh, see, now if I was his lawyer, I'd be like, listen, the cops mistakenly thought that he was possessing this substance that was actually his friend's. He did not ingest it. That is not a positive test. What do you think about that move?
I understand where you're coming from, but the league is a private association.
That's a positive.
So therefore, that's a positive.
That's
test.
a positive. That's one of those. That's one of the segments that we're developing just to put it on wax. That's a positive is one of our segments. It's coming because there's certain things that are just positives, and you know exactly what we're talking about if you listen to the show. Zach LaVine is a sneaker free agent. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
Keep it moving. I want to see him get healthy and ball in Chicago.
One of my favorite personalities in the world of sports and pop culture, a man whose hand I've never shaken and I never want to because he's a legend. He's got a godlike status in my mind, and that is, of course, the notorious JVG, Jeff Van Gundy.
Shout out.
He said that he is pretty sure the Warriors are, quote, going to win forever. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
Hit the brakes.
God, I love Jeff Van Gundy. I love Jeff Van Gundy so much. He is so good at being a color or a studio analyst. He is just so excellent that I really hope he does not go back to coaching. Continue, Mr. Rose.
What he's basically alluding to is how the Golden State Warriors were a 73-win team, and because they lost to the NBA Finals to the Cleveland Cavaliers, were able to attain Kevin Durant, a top 2 or 3 player in the whole league. And when you put that kind of firepower on one roster, it does seem like they're going to win forever. But the beauty of sports, you still got to show up and ball.
Yep.
And I appreciate a lot of the moves that other teams have made this offseason. Russell with OKC, CP3 in Houston, Boston Celtics adding Hayward along with Kyrie. There's still a big move to be done in Cleveland.
And
I'm
also,
already saying it. It should be Kevin Love, Shumpert, the Nets' #1 pick for Boogie!
I would love that. And also, I think that the Cavs are definitely making a run at this season. I think there is this thing of, should the Cavs? LeBron's leaving, so should they prepare for the future? Sure, they should. But, they signed Kyle Korver. Let's not sleep on that. They signed Derrick Rose, who scored 18 points a game last year. He scored 18 points a game last year. And they've got Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder. Those are all 4. Well, I guess Korver was there last year. Those are 3 new players and locked in a player who never really got comfortable on the team last year. They are improved from last year without even making a move for someone named Boogie.
And also, they got Isaiah Thomas. Once he gets healthy, he only averaged 29 points last year. Yep. And Dwayne Wade will be on their team.
Wait, he's not on that team yet?
Nope.
He's not
we
on
should
the team
just
yet?
do a clock.
Yes, we should have a countdown clock. When do you think it'll be? Right after Christmas, January?
He's going to try to make it happen ASAP, but they'll make him take such a haircut.
Do you think maybe
they're going to make him
knee?
show up at training camp?
You think maybe his knee will start hurting a little bit? Maybe miss some games? Maybe he'll miss a couple games? Yeah, my neck and my back. You know what? I love to mentor these young players, but I got a rehab today. I'm not going to play, so I'm going to have to go to my rehab place. That's in Miami. We'll see. Let's see. Next, there was an investigation from the National Football League, and they haven't concluded that there's no evidence that Tom Brady had a concussion last year during the season. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
Please keep it moving.
Jacoby Brissett.
Hit the brakes.
Is trying to learn the playbook on the fly. He said, it's the NFL. After the last 48 hours, nothing is surprising. Jacoby Brissett's going to play. And when he plays, he's going to win. And they're going to say, you know what, Andrew Luck, can we get out of this contract? Is there any clause in here about shoulders? Because Jacoby Brissett is the future MVP of the National Football League. No one respects him the way he needs to be respected, except here on Jalen and Jacoby.
Other than Vince Wilfork, and I love the way he retired, it was so apropos. Usually when people leave the Patriot system, they don't play as well as they did when they were there.
That's a good point. Richard Seymour comes to mind. Drew comes to mind. Matt Castle comes to mind.
How even about recently, like Darrelle Revis?
Yeah. Matt Castle, remember him? He was hot.
And so I want to see Jacoby Brissett be the player that kind of ends that curse.
I want to see that too, and some tells me we will see it. Remember, 2019 NFL MVP Jacoby Brissett. If you call 985-80-JALEN, you leave us a voicemail. If you leave us a voicemail, we'll play it on the show. It is Wednesday. We celebrate the ladies in our life and around the world.
Hey, ladies!
Every single Wednesday. So we have an all-female voicemails this week. Let's listen to the first voicemail.
Hey, Jalen and Jacoby. My boyfriend is a huge fan, and I want to thank him for putting me on this podcast. I'm calling from Stony Brook University here on Long Island, New York. My question is, soft move or boss move? My boyfriend and I going together to get our eyebrows waxed. Keep giving the people what they want, and Jalen keep getting them checked.
I'll take this. Now, I have eyebrows that just grow like weeds. Like, my eyebrows end up in my eyes. I have to trim them, and I have to spend a lot of time grooming my eyebrows. And that's why I want to discuss this with you. Thank you so much for the call. It's a topic that I'm very passionate about, to be honest with you. There was a long part of my life where I was proud of my bushy eyebrows. I have a couple long brown, like blonde brown hairs in there mixed in with the dark hairs. I really loved it. I kind of combed them for a while and brushed them to the side. You know that thing where you clear out the corners of your mouth with the pinkies, and then you brush them to the side with the pinkies.
And then you smell your hand and realize that really stinks?
No, that's not what I do. That must be a you thing. But it came a point in my life where my wife, the makeup artist for this show, big shout to Kelly, she was like, so we got to do something about this. So I succumbed to peer pressure, as you never should do. I broke out of my own shell. I came outside of my comfort zone, and I had my eyebrows trimmed. That being said, I feel the same way about manscaping as I do about my eyebrows. You should do it. I do encourage it, but it should never look like it's something that you do. You see what I'm saying? It's like a good referee in a basketball game. Like, you should never know that they're even there. So if you look at me, you never say, that's a dude that has his eyebrows plucked, or that's a dude that trims his eyebrows. You should never, that thought should never come into your head. But it is a soft move to get them waxed. Yep. I'm gonna draw the line at that. Yep. Getting them waxed, you're gonna end up looking like a Jersey Shore cast reject. You know, with the eyebrows that look like they're in a fight. They don't want to stand next to each other, coming out in the middle of your eyeballs. Oh, we got a problem here? Jalen, your thoughts?
Oh, we got a problem. First off, that was one of the greatest answers you've ever given.
I'm passionate about this topic. I'm passionate.
Seriously, like, we need to do a 30 for 30 on that answer.
They do a lot of 30 for 30s.
That need to be a story time with David, no doubt about it. Yep. And congratulations on being nominated on the 40 and 40 list, 40 and under list, the greatest individuals in sports and entertainment. My brother, I'm happy for you.
Thank you, Jalen Rose.
So a couple of things. The reason why I'm actually disappointed in your answer.
Wait. Hit the brakes, Reg. You just said it was the greatest answer that I've ever given in the history of the program, and then we need to do a 30 for 30 about it. Here's the thing about you, Jalen. Let me give you a note before you give me a note. But every time you say something nice, you're just setting it up. It's like setting up a punch as a boxer. You're just setting up the negative to come. You talk about 30 for 30 on it, and then you say the only thing that disappoints me about your answer. Okay, I just want to point that out. That's something you need to work on. Please continue.
Thank you, my brother. I love you too. So I was just going to take a different approach to the answer. I should have articulated that better.
Oh, okay.
And here's what I mean. How many years have you and your lovely bride been together?
Been together for 15?
Let me text Amari and ask him. Anyway, so
like the 7 people that got that are laughing right now. But continue.
So you know better than anyone. Happy wife, happy life.
Yep.
And certain quality time that you spend together that you can't spend with me or your other homies or even alone is that quality time that brings you closer together because she feels like she's taking you out of your comfort zone and also she feels like she's making you better.
You make me better.
For me, I'm not a hairy dude.
No.
I have no hair on my chest, none on my back.
Nope.
Barely grow some on my underarms.
Barely on your arms. Yeah, just around your mouth.
No doubt about it. And can't grow a beard and down low basically resembles my armpits.
The hairline looks great. Didn't need that information.
And so with that being said, if you have a day to spend with your significant other and do personal grooming.
I like this. I like where you're going here.
I think that's a boss move.
It's time well spent. Look, as you get older, I learned that I love a spa day. I didn't know I loved a spa day when I was 36.
Didn't either.
Now that I'm 39, I love a spa day.
That's where I'm going now. Because I've been the dude playing in the league, which, by the way, if my hands and feet are well, that normally helps me as an athlete. I wasn't smart enough to realize to take care of them and treat them with care and scrape the dead skin off the bottom of my feet that made me 2 inches taller. And also, instead of pulling my toenails, actually getting them clipped by a professional.
I mean, you can do that yourself, too. I've never had a professional do that.
And so, now all of a sudden, hanging out with wifey, I can't front, getting mani and patties, putting my feet in the warm water, getting my calves
against it.
rubbed.
Never done it, I'm not against it. Never done it, not against it.
I can't front. And it's not like I'm doing it in, like, a large major metropolitan city on the main street.
But here's another thing, it's like I would really love to do that with my wife, but one thing I'm never going to do is like, yo, Jalen, after the show, let's just go get a pedicure. You know, it's really about how you do it. It's like me and you aren't going to do that. And I'm a very open dude. You know what I mean? Like I'm very progressive and modern, but like I just feel like when you're with the boys, it might not be time to get a pedi.
So I can't front, and I appreciate the call on a woman crush Wednesday. If he's getting his wax on, if he's getting his manscape on, if he's getting his spa day treatment, and he's hanging out with you, that's a boss move.
Thank you so much for the call. Shout to Stony Brook. Right around there, I believe, is where my man Miles Plumlee got, caught up with the medicinal. But we'll touch on that later. Let's listen to the next voicemail.
Hey, Jalen Jacoby. This is Angie from Houston, Texas. And inquiring minds and the nosy women of America and Australia want to know, how many remote studios is Jalen actually broadcasting from? I'm going to wager the answer is 3 and say that you're working out of Detroit, Atlanta, and New York. Shout out to Reggie Noble and shout out to Family Feud team member Amina Hussein. Keep giving the people what they want.
No, she knows you. She's in your phone or she knows somebody in your phone. Yeah, she's in your phone or she knows somebody in your phone. I don't know if we can answer that one, Jalen. I don't know if you want to answer that one. You're gonna have to move. You got to pass. You have to plead the fifth on that one because I don't know if you want Angie finding out your business. Big shout to Angie. Big shout to everybody in Houston, obviously, and everybody preparing for the landfall of Irma in Puerto Rico. the British Virgin Islands, and everyone that's affected by these terrible natural disasters. Don't answer that question. Let's listen to another female voicemail.
We appreciate the call.
I want to keep this short. I just want to give a quick shout out to my lover, Luis Cencion. He always listens to you guys, and he absolutely loves you. I personally am starting to get into the show slowly but surely. So big shout out to you guys. Your fan base is getting bigger and bigger by the day here at SoCal. Just want to give out some shout out to my lover. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate the love. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We give the people what they want, and we always try to provide a dope pod to step to. So for everybody that's in a committed relationship, she just made me think of something. It's almost like when you start having kids or grandkids, you try to figure out what you want to be called.
Okay.
And based on this, would you rather be called boyfriend if you're not married?
I like
or
lover. I like lover. I like lover, but it doesn't necessarily have a committed relationship connotation. You know what I mean? Like a lover is like 1 degree away from side piece. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's not my boyfriend. That's my lover. As in, like, what we do is make love, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's why I had to go there, because there are certain titles that are concrete. Like boyfriend, husband.
Mm-hmm.
Boyfriend, fiance, husband.
It's defined. You know what that is. There's an exclusivity that's there.
Yes.
Lover doesn't have an exclusive connotation.
But I ain't mad at her. We ain't here to judge.
Yeah, sure. And shout out to Luis. He's got his girl calling in, just calling, saying his lover on Jalen and Jacoby, national radio show and podcast. Thank you to all of our female
He just went and got a
voicemails
manscape for that.
We're about to open up our 1-800-FULL-HOURS Twitter feed and take questions from you, our listeners, because we have a simple motto. First question that we have is from Dave.
Shout out.
Dave says, how do you feel about Jacoby Brissett on the Colts now? I'm a Colts fan. That's it. I'm a Colts fan. I got a Colts helmet, I got a Colts horseshoe tattoo, I got a sweatshirt. I'm all in on Brissett. And here's what happens with me and Jacoby Brissett. I'm a negative person. There's darkness in my soul, and I know that about myself. If you're playing in front of Jacoby Brissett, I wouldn't mind if you got hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Or if you got outperformed in practice. I want to see Jacoby Brissett on the field. You know what? Andrew Luck, take your time coming back. Tolzien, you're all right, but you're not real. That button still work?
He's all right, but he's not real.
Scott Tolzien.
He's all right, but he's not real.
Andrew Luck, he's hurt. Let's get Jacoby back in the game. Jacoby threw he's had 4 touchdowns in a preseason game like 2 weeks ago. He's hot. Put him in the game. What do you got to lose? Next question we have is from Sky.
Shout out.
Oh, no, I'm going to get in trouble in this one. Soft move or boss move, LFL fantasy football draft. Do you know what LFL football is, Jalen?
Ladies Fantasy Football League?
I believe it used to be. LFL, I believe, has rebranded, but it is the Lingerie Football League, right? But like before everyone starts judging, let me say this. I've kept tabs on this league. I have attended a game, a professional game. I was covering it for Grantland. I didn't end up writing about it. But let me tell you something. These women can play football. Like this isn't like Hooters. This is not a strip club environment. This is not sexual objectification of women to the 10th degree. It's like a 2nd degree sexual objectification of women. But these are real athletes. Like they can play football better than you. You will lose to them. And they tackle hard and they wear pads.
Who's one of our not only colleagues but favorite guests to have on this show? Anita Marks.
Yep, of course.
And you know what she did? She played football at one point in time.
Exactly.
And regardless to whatever clothing she put on, don't be the dude, as you always say, that's at the water cooler with an espresso in his hand with a pot belly to think,
I could play in that league. Better. Oh, yeah, no problem. And it's called the Legends Football League. They're kind of moving away from the whole kind of like objectification part and trying to put the emphasis on the professional football part. But they can play, man. I'll tell you. Thanks for the question. Next question is from Tomo.
I know. Can I say one other thing about that, please?
Oh, I'm trying to get out before we got fired.
No, because I'm pretty sure there are people in their cars listening to this program and this podcast that ain't going to let you get away with something. What did you say you did again? So
I attended.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
So you went to cover the game for Grantland, but never what?
I never wrote about it. Never was a post about it.
Why did you go for real then?
I wanted to explore the environment, and I wanted to see if there was something there for me to come back with and have an intelligent take on. And here's the thing: is
I know you.
If I don't have something intelligent to say, then I don't say anything at all. Like I kind of felt like I can't really co-sign this league, and I can't really no-sign this league. So I'm just gonna leave it right where it is and not have my name associated with it until 5 years later when someone asks a question on Twitter.
I got one other thing to say.
What's that?
I can almost bet anything that I know where this took place at.
No, you have absolutely no idea. I didn't even get in a plane. You have no idea.
Vegas.
No, it was in Ontario, California. And when I first got it, it was like Ontario. I was like, I'm not going to Connecticut. Like I'm not.
Or Canada.
I was like, I'm not flying for this. Like you crazy? I'm not getting on a passport to watch the Legends Football League. But then I realized Ontario was a place that's like an hour away from LA. So I drove out there. Traffic was terrible. You know, and I got to the game and I realized real quick this wasn't something that I wanted to write about. So I just sat there and just watched. It was you know, it wasn't the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight. Let's just say that. You know what I mean? It wasn't the most high profile sporting event, but I enjoyed it. I really did.
So we got to go check it out again. We'll go together.
Okay. Wait, how come every time I say something that's not true, you push all the buttons, Reg? But when Jalen says we're going to go to a Legends Football League game, you don't push any buttons. I'll push the buttons.
Because you know I'm serious.
Matthias has a question.
Shout out.
I believe the question is, will you leave the minivan mafia when your kids are grown-ups?
No.
I'm minivan mafia for life, but I'm going to stop driving a minivan once they're out the house, man. You crazy? Once they're out the house, I'm going to have my midlife crisis. I'm going to get a little drop-top sports car that only me and my wife can fit in. Like, oh, can I pick you up? No, I can't pick you up. There's only room for two in here. And you know what? I'm going to still drive 65, but I'm going to have the ability to go 165. I'm a corner like a boss. I love the minivan mafia. I'll have a minivan just in the garage, just so I can keep a sticker, you know? Because to be part of the minivan mafia, you have to actually send a copy of your registration every year. It's true. And you have to send $2,000. This is a very exclusive club.
And what the minivan mafia must understand about their capo, he is die easy.
Oh, yeah, always. 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 Next question we have is from Uncle Mar. Great question. Will Kyrie ever grow his beard back with the Celtics? Again, this is the type of thing that's tailor-made for Jalen and Jacoby. He showed up at the press conference with no beard. It was striking because it was like, Kyrie looks different. He's got green around him everywhere. Then you realize he didn't have a beard. Then you hear that they are shooting the Uncle Drew movie. Hard to wear a prosthetic beard if you have a real beard. So do you think that his beard, his lack of beard, is a functional or a fashion choice?
I think it's a reinvention.
Oh, okay.
A fashion choice. He gave us the beard as Robin, as a member of the Cavs. Now he's starring in his own movies, playing for the Boston Celtics without the beard.
Okay, Jalen, I'm so glad you did this. So now he's going to be Batman. My question for you is, and wait till I'm finished, and hopefully you've heard of some of these people. Will he be the Val Kilmer Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman, the George Clooney Batman, the Christian Bale Batman, or the Ben Affleck,
Kilmer,
or the Val Kilmer Batman? That's a good Batman. I'll take that. I'll take that. Not exactly the Christian Bale Batman, but not as bad as the George Clooney Batman. I'll take that. That's a good Batman. That's a good answer. Probably as Batman power rankings go, probably number 2. R.I.P. Adam West, the original Batman. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Don't forget, subscribe to the Nickel Package Podcast. It's a brand new podcast from ESPN. It is every day of the week. There's a different host or duo. We've got Field Yates on Monday, Jacoby and Kean Fahy on Tuesday, Wednesday